So this is Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. This is the DLC called Revelations. So we are going to be taking control of Alucard, Trevor Belmont, who is Gabriel Belmont or Dracula's son. So this takes place before the game. It's kind of just explaining what happened, basically showing what Alucard had to do to help his father between games. So this is just going to explain some of our abilities here. This character, Alucard, is very different from Gabriel. He does have some advantages and weaknesses. Overall, his combat is a little worse, and his movement is a little bit slower. But he does have one cool ability, which is the Bat Form, which allows us to do some pretty cool things. So right here we're learning specifically two abilities that we're going to use. The other two you just have to get to unlock them. We're going to be using those a lot, specifically the Igneous Blade. We'll go over that later. But right here, what we're doing here is we're setting up a skip. This skip area is present in the main game, and the skip is also used in the main game. Unfortunately, you don't save as much time, but basically you use that archway there to be able to reset your ground, so you can use an aerial or a rising strike, which gives you air off the ground so that you can get the height you need to be able to dash onto that ledge there. In the main game, it saves a lot of time. Unfortunately, there is a checkpoint at this door here, as well as there being a checkpoint at the first fight. So there is a cutscene hard-coded on the first checkpoint you get. And because if we don't trigger that fight, we would get the cutscene here. We would just soft lock. So we do have to trigger the fight, but we can save a little bit of time by triggering it and then doing the skip anyway. So this second ability Alucard has just basically allows broken things to be repaired for a short amount of time. And the third ability here, Alucard leaves his body and manifests into a spirit wolf, and then he can jump larger distances and also move through things. So right here we're going to set up for a little bit of a skip here. So at the top here we're going to bat up, and then we're going to jump off. You're not supposed to be able to get to this platform over here. It's not really intended for you to be here, but we can walk over to where we're going and then just jump inside instead of having to bat form all the way around. Saves probably 5 to 10 seconds. So here we're going to step into one of the toy makers and mini games. There's two mini games present in the speedrun, and we don't really have to do them. It's actually faster to lose the mini game than it is to complete the mini games. So we're just going to dash onto the spikes there and then move on into the next room. So the next room is supposed to be a puzzle room, but there's not much of a puzzle to it. We're going to grab the shields, we're going to put them where they go, and then we're going to use Timeless Vision to activate some saw blades, which are going to open the doors for us. But the important part here is, while we're waiting for Timeless Vision, we're going to start hitting these statues here and look for some relic drops. So relics are items in the game that allow you to gain certain effects. Some of them will slow down time, some of them will overflow your health bar. And the one that we care about is going to give us unlimited blue and red magic for 45 seconds. Now, one important thing they added with the DLC is the ability to transmute relics. So any relic we get, we can turn into the one we want at a trade of 1 for 1, basically. And then here, we're just going to run past all the enemies into the next puzzle room here. So this next puzzle room does have actually a pretty neat trick here. A lot of the things in this were found out by Turbo Dog, but you're not supposed to be able to move in this section, but you can still wolf form. So you can just wolf form onto the platform and get hit by the spikes. You save about 2-3 seconds by doing that. So this is the first and only time in the run we're going to be using a mana fountain. I'm just using it to top up my red bar to full. Basically, if I have a full bar of red, I can use it to kill the first 2 jailers, or clear the first 2 rooms, without having to actually use any of my demon tiers, so I don't have to waste one of the relics. Since the relic drops are RNG, we don't want to we want to save them as much as possible. So being able to save one or two on these rooms is really nice. And again, as long as you hit one of the small ones with the big one on one of your attacks, you're fine. And so that move there we were using, it's called the Igneous Blade. It's the most powerful attack in the game. It's the best damage, basically. But more importantly than anything else, the Igneous Blade allows you to circumvent armor, which a lot of the enemies in this game have. So, for example, those jailers there have either armor on their front or back, which you either have to attack them where they don't have the armor, or use fire magic to break the armor. But for whatever reason, Igneous Blade just goes straight through it, so you don't have to worry about the armor at all. They'll just take full damage. So this is a little bit of a trick here. It just saves a little bit of time instead of having to run up. You can just bat form and jump over. You can't jump back, unfortunately, so you do have to bat over, but batting is not too slow. So we're going to head into the second area here. And what we're doing is we're picking up keys. Ooh, a little bit of lag there. We're picking up keys to open the main door at the bottom. And what we're looking to do is so basically what the goal of this is we're looking for the powerful weapons that Gabriel needs for his journey. And we're going to try and get them into place so that when he comes through the castle later, he knows where everything is. That doesn't end up being the case when he does come through. I guess it is also important to note that we are in some reverse crazy world here. Basically what's going on right now is Alucard is in a fictional version of Castlevania, because Castlevania is already blown up back in like the 1200s. We're in the 3000s now or something, or 21. I think it's actually the 2100s or something. Anyway, Castlevania Castle blew up and was converted into a city, and now we're in Castlevania probably about an hour before Dracula wakes up in the 2100s. So timeline doesn't exactly make sense. But anyway, we are in Castlevania trying to find the swords for Gabriel for his adventure. And here I'm actually going to pick up the key a little bit before I kill him, just so that the door starts opening and I can dash towards it, and I don't have to go through the animation of picking up the key. So heading into this next area here, we are going to use the first relic, or the second relic here of the demon tiers, and it's important to note specifically on this fight, because we're going to use it for 2 fights in a row, because one of the fights happens after a cutscene. The time still goes through during the cutscenes, so we do have to do these fights. Besides just wanting to do the fights fast, we actually do have to do the fight fast. That way we don't have to use 2 relics. And again, being short on relics, you don't want to use relics often. You want to try and save them. So right here I get super lucky, and I actually lined 3 of them up in one go. You're usually looking to get 3 or 4 attacks here, and sometimes you can get unlucky and have to do 6. Fortunately, I was able to get it in 4. 3 is the best I've ever been able to do, and probably the best the I will ever let you. So this is the first boss here, and he's holding the Void Sword, which is your father's version of your Glacium Blade. It gives him blue magic, which allows you to freeze and also heal off. The boss, again, pretty easy because of the Igneous Blade. So now we're just getting some cutscenes here. It's introducing us to the Watchers, which are going to let us teleport through the castle. We only used them twice, and fortunately the second time... Or no, sorry, you only use them once. You do get to see a second one, but you don't actually use it. So we're going to show up into a different part of this castle here. And this is going to introduce a kind of important mechanic, in the sense that it has a lot of potential, but unfortunately We haven't figured out a way to harness it properly yet. I've done some tests and I don't think it's possible. I'll get into that in a second. So here we're going to do a little bit of a skip. So these enemies here, they have 2 stages basically. So you kill them once and then they turn into blood pools. And if you don't kill the blood pools quickly enough, then they turn into skeletons again. So I could do an extra 2 attacks here and kill them off. But as soon as they go into the blood form, I have enough time to just open this door here without having to kill them, which saves charging up 2 attacks, which does save a little bit of time. Then we're going to flip the key here and head over and get the key to the next room. But the mechanic I was referring to here is actually the blood there. Similar to most games, they want to give you a obstacle like water that you can't go in. So if you step into the blood, you'll actually die. Now, it's not an insta-death. It'll just spawn you back at the last ground you were on, and then you'll take a little bit of damage. However, the blood is not very stable, so it's possible to get out of bounds in a lot of places, but unfortunately, most of the places don't have a use. Just the way the out of bounds works, you're limited in the area you can go, and the places you can get out of bounds either don't have any useful places for you to go, or the places you can go skip a checkpoint, and if you skip a checkpoint, the next section of the game won't load, basically. So here we're in kind of a side scroller. Basically, this harpy here is going to start throwing explosives at us, and we need to wait for the harpy to target the beams here and then move off so we don't fall into the blood. And we had to do it 6 times, and then we get to the top and we actually fight the harpy. So it is possible to jump down like I did there. You can jump down, and then as soon as she's thrown it, you can jump back up, and then you get into basically the blast radius, but you don't take damage. So once we get at the top here, we're going to throw down another demon here, and basically we're going to use them for every fight in the game, except the first 2. Just it gives us so much damage potential. So right there, I was lucky and I got a double hit on that one. So this is the only time I'll use that move. This is the other strong move in the game. It is a very strong move. It does freeze the enemies. It's an AoE attack, freezes them, heals you. It's very strong, but it's just overshadowed by the Igneous Blade, which is a very, very strong attack. There's almost never a reason to use the Glacian Blade. The reason I used it there, of course, is that the Harpy is an aerial target, or an aerial creature, and you can't hit it with Igneous Blade, but when she does that dive attack, you can freeze her in place. So here we're going to start heading into some of the more unstable tricks of the game, in the sense that they work because the game is unstable. Fortunately, doesn't really crash the game. But the blood pools here, specifically when they lower, kind of weren't programmed right. So we're not going to do it quite yet. We're going to do it on the next floor here. But basically the object of the next couple rooms here is we're going to go into the rooms and we're going to lower the blood pools so we can go deeper into the castle, so that we can open the door we need to go to continue on. Right now we are looking for the Chaos Claws, as well as actually just looking for Zobek's Lieutenant, which we'll get to a little later on. So we're going to go across the pool here. We're not going to use the out of bounds like I was talking in the run, but we are able to do a pretty cool trick here. So what we're going to do here is, while the blood is lowering, we're going to wait for it to start lowering, and then we're going to dash into the blood at the right point where our body is going to hit the ground, and it's actually going to spawn us somewhere it's not supposed to. It actually spawned us where we started before we jumped across the blood as the wolf. which means when the blood goes down, we can drop down right next to the switch when all of the blood forms spawn on the other side of the room. So it gives us enough time to be able to flip that switch before they spawn. It saves having to fight 3 enemies, which saves a decent amount of time. That room is pretty long. And again, that's all possible because the blood's not a mechanic in the real game, so they had to make it for this. And the DLC has some issues that are very clear, very clearly a cause of just a rushed cycle. They didn't put a lot of time into this DLC. It is a very fun DLC, but there are some glaring mistakes. So we're pretty much done here. We have one last puzzle room, and then we're gonna get 2 more fights, and then the game is over. This last puzzle is... I call it a puzzle room, but it's not much of a puzzle room. Basically, there's a shield on the right side here, and we're going to have to use timeless vision. And then we have 40 seconds to bring it across the room and put it on a pressure plate, and then get through the door. Now, this is a new game plus. I'm pretty far into the run here, but you can see my health bar at the top there. It actually has some bars blocked out, whereas my magic bars aren't like that. So the reason is that there is relics in the game you can pick up that will unlock your bar here. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because this room has an unproportionally large amount of them in this room. I believe there's 3 total, and there's only like 18 total in the game. So this is the second last fight of the game. We're just fighting some holy warriors here. This fight can be a little annoying just because they can keep spawning if you don't kill the 2 big ones. So they can keep spawning units over and over again. Sometimes you can get lucky and you can actually kill them before the 2 small ones spawn, but I wasn't actually able to do that here. So we're going to go into some final cutscenes here, and we're going to talk to our mother, Maria, who's been dead for 800 years, and I never knew because she died before, well, not before I was born, but, and I mean Trevor, but she was dead long before Trevor had memories. But anyway, we're talking to our mother, and now we're in the present. So we're heading into the final part of the game, and I only need 1 demon tier for this fight, but I made 2 just in case, because unfortunately the glitchiest part of the game is this final boss. So I'm preempting the fight by dropping a demon tier early on, but we're now fighting Zobek's Lieutenant, aka Sergeant Softlock. So the reason he's called Sergeant Softlock is there is a potential for him to be unkillable. Fortunately, the solution to that is just reloading a checkpoint and then redoing the fight, so you don't lose a lot of time if it happens. But it is possible for Zobek's Lieutenant to go down to 0 health and then just gain health back up to a quarter. So this entire fight here, I'm just trying to get him down to 0 health before he does his first cycle here. So I'm just dodging and using Igneous Blade to throw him into this second cycle. So we skip his other cycle where he attacks the ground. And then after we bat form up and jump over, the game is done. We have defeated Zobek's Lieutenant.